now. Hello, I'm Christine Zips of Zips Media, and today I have a special guest joining me again. I've had the pleasure of joining him in conversation several times, and I'll share a link to that playlist below in the show notes. But today we are welcoming Tom DeWeese of American Policy Center. And if I can share a little bit of an introduction for him, his full bio will be down in the show notes, so you'll want to check that. But Tom DeWeese is one of the nation's leading advocates of individual liberty, free enterprise, private property rights, personal privacy, back to basics education, and American sovereignty and independence. And so we've got a lot to cover today. And we have again, his bio in the show notes. So first of all, welcome to you, Tom.
Oh, thank you. Well, something I wanted to add there, I forgot to mention to you.
Sure.
I have begun working with another organization as well called CFACT, Committee for a Constructive Tomorrow, and they have made me their national grassroots coordinator to help organize people across the country. So they're working with me on that effort. So we are working together.
Fantastic, fantastic. That I don't know. I'm sure you don't have time to sleep, but we appreciate all you do. So it's just a pleasure to welcome you back again. So
Thank you.
we do have a lot to cover today. So we'll be spreading our conversation over two segments. And the first one will cover your efforts, Tom, with helping people in your local area, especially, stand down to the push to turn their property into corporate solar farms. And in preparing for this interview, I learned that since last summer, there were already 9 large-scale solar projects, either operational, under construction, or planned for 4 counties within an hour's drive of Cincinnati and southwest of your county of Licking, Ohio. Is this true? And if so, I'm wondering what the proponents are using to push this plan.
Yeah, this is my home state, Ohio. I actually live in Virginia now, but Licking County is my home county, and I'm very, very concerned about what's happening there. Uh, yes, these things are happening. There is a major drive going on nationwide to impose these solar farms. And the reason for that, the Biden infrastructure bill that was passed in Congress a year or so ago, has massive amounts of money in it for this very purpose. And you also have regional grants. You have regional governments councils that are made up of multiple city councils or or county commissions that get into these things, and then these regional councils start applying for these grants. They know how to do it and everything. You end up with a one size fits all for all these different counties, even though they all have their own unique situations and so forth. But all of a sudden, they're putting a one size fits all together. So all of these forces and these corporations, particularly led by BlackRock. BlackRock is the richest corporation in the world, and they are moving to put all this stuff in place. So all of that together is behind. You're seeing these solar farms and so forth growing by leaps and bounds because of this. Yeah.
Amazing. I'm not surprised that BlackRock has something to do with that. I didn't understand that. And they just seem to be in, at least in the background of so many concerning things going on these days, don't they? It's just
Oh yeah, I
amazing.
mean, in the rural areas and what we're talking about here, and the solar farms and everything, they're behind that. They are a major contributor to the work in South Dakota and Iowa, North Dakota, Minnesota, and Nebraska to putting the carbon capture pipeline together. They're one of the main funders doing that. Um, and in the cities, they smart growth programs where they are literally going into communities, destroying private property, neighborhood, private home, single family neighborhoods, all of that. They're behind all of this. And so they are one of the most powerful forces that we're dealing with here. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd like to mention that Tom and I we did an interview where he was sharing with us more about these carbon capture pipelines. So I'll be sharing a link to the playlist where you can check in on that very, very insightful information. So, Tom, what impacts do these solar farms like the Amazon Hillcrest Farm have in the community, especially to nearby farmers and landowners?
Yeah. Well, landowners, farmers across the country are just being under siege, and this putting these together. Even if you have property next door to a farm that is putting solar panels in place and on over hundreds of acres, perhaps, it does affect your property. It affects your property values and the what you can do with your property. One of the things behind all this is there are sustainable rules and regulations, federal rules. States are starting to pick up on these about how you can use your property, how you can grow crops on your property, or if you can. So all of this affects that. But one of the interesting things that I've learned just recently is that if you've got thousands and thousands, and we're looking at millions of acres here across the country when they're done with this, of solar panels. The solar panels, the plastic, and so the materials that they're made of, literally under those huge numbers, creates warming. The purpose of all of this, of course, is to save us from climate change and global
Oh,
warming.
no.
Yeah, but we find out that they are actually helping to cause it. And I was
Talk
just
about
astounded when I
irony.
found it out. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, that's, how can I say this? I mean, people, it sounds so radical. People don't believe it. But we're dealing with a situation here that is not about protecting the environment. It is about power, control. And people like Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset, their global plan to control everything, that's what it's all about. And you see, if you really dig into this, you find China involved in so much of this, moving to get solar farms and building all that here. They are trying to get the United States to be completely consumed by all of this. It will absolutely destroy our economy, destroy our power force, our energy, and make us subservient to others. And meanwhile, as China is doing this in its own country, it's opening up massive amounts of coal mines and so forth. So they're not uh, tied under all this. This is a trick. This is a tactic. Uh, if you and I know this gets off a little bit of the subject, but you have to understand this background. In the beginning, when they decided to create global governance, all controlled from the top, there was one country in the world that was built differently than almost every other country. Most countries were designed to where government told you what your rights are and determined your economy and all that. The United States was created, the Constitution was written to say that you are born with your rights, and it's government's job to protect those rights. And so that was in the way of them creating global governance. They had to change our society. They had to change the way we are operating. And getting control of our energy system is a major way to do that. And that's what's behind a lot of this. Now, I know that sounds like a nutty conspiracy theory, and I've been accused of that many, many times. But every single thing I've ever come up with here, I've got proof to show that it's true. So tough.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I understand the um, I'm not sure if it's the Amazon Hillcrest development project or whatever, but it's like a merger of a company from China, as well as another one that I guess is based in the US, but they have affiliations with the CCP, the Communist Party. Do I have that right? I'm
Yes.
not
Yes,
sure. Okay.
absolutely. And as a little farther on, as we get to talk about this other situation in Ohio, exactly the same thing.
Okay.
And they are doing everything they can to get around. across the country, states are starting to pass legislation. Arkansas was one of the first that would prohibit the Chinese from buying, controlling land in this country and building companies and stuff here. And they're already starting to put together a plan that gets them around that. And,
Of course.
so
Of
that's,
course.
these are
It's
clever guys.
amazing. Yeah. And I understand that proponents of this sort of activity, that they're luring the farmers with enticing carrots, like prospects of earning up to 3 times more when they lease their property for solar farms compared to what they made from farming endeavors. Is that your understanding with that?
Well, they are promising lots of money. I was in Montana recently, and a lady who had a farm there came up to me and told me that they had offered her $1 million to put a wind. I'm not sure how extensive it was going to be, but wind towers, wind farm in there. And I thought at the time, even as opposed as I am to all this stuff, if somebody offered me $1 million, it'd be hard to say no
Would?
to it. And they're
Of
doing
course.
that. But there's two pitfalls here. In some cases, they are only offering it for a few years because what happens if that solar farm or that wind farm doesn't work and goes out of business?
Mm.
It can happen. It has happened. What happens to your property? What happens to your farm? And the other thing is we're finding that, like, for example, the situation in South Dakota and Iowa, and we were talking about the carbon capture pipelines, where they had the corporations there getting the farmers to sign easements to allow them to bring this thing on their property, and they were going to give them money for that. Of course, if they didn't sign, to let them do that, then they were going to use eminent domain and just take it. But they were going to give them money for allowing them to do that. And as we began to really put up a fight, and it looked like we were going to succeed in stopping the pipeline, the corporations said, well, we've got the easements on that land. That's our land. So we can sell it or we can do something else with it. So, and I argued that if a project goes out of business, if it dies, if it's denied, whatever the case may be, then any easement you sign for that purpose is null and void. And we're working trying to get the legislatures to understand that. But these people are corrupt in what they're doing. They are determined to do one thing: control, and they'll lie, cheat, and steal to get there. And they're doing that with getting farmers. Farmers, they're just folk. They don't want to be political warriors and so forth. They just want to be left alone to do what they do. I've never met a farmer in my life who didn't want to be a farmer. And so
That's what
they
we
will
love
sign
about
easements.
them.
Yeah, they'll sign easements because they've been promised, hey, you sign this and your farm will always be a farm. Okay, that'll be good. And it turns out that's not true. And they get sucked in to all these things. And we're doing our best to try to alert them. And I'm seeing reaction. They're starting to catch on and get it.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
That is great. And like you mentioned, the environment, I was wondering what type of downsides solar farms pose to birds and pollinators and even the quality of the soil. Like, will these farmers, should they agree to lease to solar farms at the end of that period and they want to return to farming, will they have a depleted soil with nothing to work with, totally sterile? Or what are you hearing or understanding about those things?
That is what I'm hearing. I mean, you're talking about having all these panels over the top of it, these plastic panels, so the sun doesn't reach the soil. And in a lot of cases, it's cement. Now, some places the solar panels don't have cement underneath, but underneath nothing is growing. And in some cases, it is massive amounts of cement. It all has to be taken out, and all that damages the soil. And it's going to take a long time to turn that around and get things back to where they were. And the other thing is the whole issue of the CO2, in that they, blocking out the CO2. We already have a shortage of it. CO2 is not a pollutant. It does not create climate change. It is the food to the soil, to the plants, to the ability to grow anything. They need it. And to think that we're talking here about people who claim to be scientists, and this is scientific, evidence that we have climate change and so forth. And you start looking at the process, the programs they're putting together to save the environment, to save the planet. We are going to cover it with millions of acres of plastic panels, and where nothing's growing underneath it. We're going to put up huge towers of wind towers, and nothing can fly through that. Thousands, millions of birds, sometimes endangered species, are killed by these things. And so this is all to save the planet. Give me a break.
Right.
this is this is ridiculous. And now you've got Bill Gates, who has suggested a thing, and I just heard recently that the Biden administration is saying, "Hey, I think we're going to do that," is to put a layer over the Earth to block out the sun. The Earth needs the sun. Everything on Earth needs the sun.
That justifies the chemtrails, right? That they've been
Exactly.
doing for so
Yeah. But they
long.
deny that exists.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course.
Yeah.
Wow. So with all this good news, how about property value? Surely they'll increase from all of this, right?
And that would happen how?
It was a
You're talking
trick
about this
question.
trick answer.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's just there's no way. And again, as we mentioned about somebody who's living next door to one of these, their property values have gone down as a result of it. And I have heard, I've gotten calls from people who have told me that next door they've got a neighbor who has massive numbers of solar panels all across their property, and they can barely weave through to get into their own property to get past them all. So yeah, it's there is nothing positive here about it at all, because the bottom line to it all is uh, the idea that this is going to create energy that we need for the future. There is no evidence whatsoever that this creates anything. I have been generous and offered them 4%, that they achieve everything they're trying to do with massive millions of miles of acres of solar panels, that it would create about 4% of the energy that we need. I'm being generous.
Mhm.
And I was told that one of the problems you have with the solar panels is if it snows, it's covered, so it's not going to create any energy. So then they are talking about putting little heaters on each panel. It gets the energy to run from the energy that the panel creates. So there goes the energy that panel creates to black it off. And I had a scientist say, I thought was perfect. He said, "We are replacing a full time energy system with a part time energy system."
Well
And
said.
I thought
Yes,
that was very well said. Yeah, that's what
absolutely.
we're doing.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And I
Yeah.
guess it goes without saying that there's bound to be health risks associated with all of this technology moving into nature. And
Yeah, it is. And uh, we've already found, and CFAC that I'm working with is running a real campaign to stop wind towers offshore, out in the ocean. The reason is that they're finding that it is affecting the sea life there. Particularly some endangered whales and so forth are being very much affected by these solar panels there. The humming that they put out, the noise they make and so forth is affecting them. Well, if that is affecting sea life to that extent, what's it doing to people living underneath it? We have heard the term that I'm seeing is called wind turbines syndrome, and there is something to this constant buzzing. This is going on with this. We already know with smart meters on your home that's emitting things that are really, some people are really affected by it. When you're talking about putting millions of these things in place, and it completely changes the whole atmosphere of what we're talking about. I mean, you have one in your yard, that's one thing, but you have millions of them clear across the country, then that's a whole different thing. And so there is evidence that is growing that these are affecting people medically.
I'm
So,
not surprised in that. And before before the bulldozers start rolling in to set up shop there with these farms, solar farms, do they hold public informational meetings to get some input from the community?
what we have found in these things, if they do hold a public meeting, they really don't want to hear from the people. They're telling them what's
Mhm.
going to happen. Sometimes you have these controlled meetings where you have somebody who is trained in psychology to know how he knows what the end of this meeting needs to be. We need to get everybody to agree with what we're doing, and they know exactly how to lead them
Yes.
and get them to accept this. And I have seen examples if you were to go there and to question what's going on there and really be opposed to what they're saying, eventually the way the meeting goes is this psychologist will say, uh, even Carolyn would understand, how this operates, or Tom would understand here what we're trying to do,
Not
and
condescending at all.
yeah, yeah, exactly, totally condescending. So it's you know they don't want to hear from us, and when people begin to rise up, we had this case in South Dakota where they tried to intimidate the farmers who were opposed to the carbon capture pipeline, and they went onto one farmer's land who was leading a lot of the opposition with a monster machine. And they went in there and dug something like 80 feet down into the ground for we never know what reason that was for. They brought in armed guards. They accused him of trying to threaten their lives. He did no such thing. And they did all this with the idea of intimidating the farmers to stop their opposition. The good news was it backfired on them, and the farmers rose up. They stormed the state legislature and said, "Protect our property rights." And the legislature is taking action, but these corporations never stop, never give up, and they are working now. I just got a report of trying to reverse and stop any kind of legislation that would stand in their way. So
That's
the
amazing. And I got to ask this question, and I believe I know the answer, but say hypothetically, if these bully developers would grow a conscience and want to engage with the community to help them maybe say, hey, we hear your concerns. How about this? Well, how about if we do this? If they could possibly reach a compromise. Do you see
yeah.
that as, I mean, I've been called Pollyanna a time or two, so maybe that's something to that. But do you think something like that could happen, or is it way too late in the game?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a positive thing, to change that would take place because it hasn't happened. But I believe the attitude of these corporations is we own the government and we're gonna get what we want. And I've heard this said. You can't stop it. This is just done. Um, but I fully believe, and this is what my whole so what I do for everything is I believe that the reason they're getting away with this is because people are too accepting, too quiet, and I'm working to organize and train people to take a stand. One of the problems we have is if people do get angry and they stand up, and maybe you have 100 or 200 people gather and try to stand up to this, and they don't win that night, they go home and they say, well, it didn't work. And they don't do it. They don't go back the next day. They are counting on us to do that. They know that's what we're going to do because the average citizens are not paid to fight these things. They are. And so they can be there 24 hours a day. Our, regular citizens have jobs and families and everything to do, and they do their best. But I do see that as people begin to stand up, it scares the other side to death that we are learning, that we know what they're up to. And I'm seeing things. I have a gentleman I work with in Minnesota, and he's a real encyclopedia in his head about a lot of these programs. He researches and studies. a lot of it. And he um, called me and said he'd been invited to go and speak at a city council meeting. The city was going to, they already had one big solar farm in the community, and they were getting ready to do a second one. And they were having it's going to be discussed at this council meeting. And he went in there and he said everybody in the place was just looking down. There was no noise going on. They were all just defeated, everything. And he went in and he started asking them questions. I told him to ask this. The first question I told him to ask was, we already have one of these in the community. What was the benefit to the community for that one? They
Excellent.
couldn't answer the question. And I have a friend out in California who same thing happened in his community where they were going to put some new green program in place. And he created what he called the 244 plan. 244 questions, details. Some of it was about just climate change in itself, the whole science behind it. Some of it was about this particular program. And he officially presented these questions to them. The planner behind it couldn't answer a single question. The
Wow.
city council couldn't answer them. They eventually fired the planner and killed the plan. And these are things we can do, and that's what we're trying to create some tools like this for people, to use because you have so many of these people who have just been told this is the plan, this is what you do, and they don't know anything behind it. One of the important things to understand is they have an agenda, and they will not back off of it. Even if they lose a fight one day, they will come back and fight and fight and fight. We don't have that agenda.
Good
And
point.
what we end up doing is working to defend freedom. We are on the defense instead of the offense. And I'm trying to create a document of our own that kind of relates what is our agenda. For example, if you are uh, trying to present our ideas to, let's say, minorities who have been totally propagandized that free enterprise, private property, all that is just a horrible thing that's trying to oppress them because government is promising to give you this and get you this and that. How do we get them to understand that what we're presenting is freedom, their opportunity for them, that they can grow, they can succeed? And so we need to get that down on paper. We need to get an agenda together, and then local communities can start taking these ideas and getting it into legislation as they do Agenda 21, for example, and a Green New Deal and all that. And so this is what I'm trying to do because we have to be able to present what is it we're for, because everything we have is what we're against, and we have to present that. So.
Wow. I wish you great luck with that, Tom. That's a huge, huge endeavor. And I know you're going to do well with that. And it kind of ties in with, I was wondering, when you're speaking locally and like especially these farmers, have they been made aware of what their trade-off would be when they say yes to leasing their property to solar farms, wind farms? Do they really understand what they would be giving up if they do that?
Many don't. And there are organizations like farm bureaus and things like that that in a lot of cases are working with these forces to put this in place. In the cattlemen's associations, for example, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is working with the World Wildlife Fund to control how cattle are grown in this country, and it's destroying the industry. And as I said, they're not activists; they're just folk, and so they aren't researching. They don't know all this, and they do get led astray by the people they trust. And this is something that we have to combat and get it out. But they are beginning to learn. I mean, there are thousands of farmers who have gone out of business, and not in that long a period of time, and they can't survive. That word is spreading. They are getting to understand that, and so. we are getting to the point of people starting to turn around, and I do not believe it's too late. I am seeing a lot of the tyranny beginning to fall, and a lot of people responding to it now, and they are terrified. They're right now they're moving as fast as they can to get as much in place because if they lose the next election and that sort of thing. But I believe that that's caused them to move too fast, and the people weren't yet totally subjected to their propaganda, and they understand that there's something wrong here, and you have people who have never supported our point of view starting to come over and say, "Tell me more," and so this is huge.
You're seeing so many victories, Tom. I've been following your work for many years, as you know, and I'm just so proud when I see what all you're accomplishing with your efforts locally and everything. You're definitely a personal hero. So thank you so much. And in a related note, I was curious, what is all the shouting about in Pataskala? Am I pronouncing that?
Pataskala, yeah, yeah.
Pataskala. Yes.
Oh, hang on a second here. Here we go. I got this is unbelievable what's going on there. Um, Pataskala is this is my home county in Licking County, Ohio. I grew up in Newark, Ohio, which is the capital for the legislative seat for Licking County, and this is about 20 miles away. And it's a small rural community of about 17,000 people, and a lot of farmers there, and they are seeing a lot of solar farms starting to grow up around their stuff. But they there's a thing there called Jobs Ohio. It provided an incentive to locate a warehouse in Pataskala to assemble solar panels. These solar panels, the materials are coming from China, and but they are claiming they've created what they call illuminate. Eliminate USA fits better, but it's Illuminate USA.
Yeah.
And the idea is this is an American company, and it's going to be the company behind building these solar panels. They're going to hire 800 people in this massive plant they're going to put together there. Well, there's a company called Longi, Longi, that is partners of Invenergy, which is a communist Chinese corporation. And people have got to understand there are no private companies in communist China. They are all their tools. Well, Longi is 49% of Illuminate USA. And this is a Chinese company, essentially. And it's a shell operation here. And what they're trying to do is say that Illuminate USA making these solar panels. The solar panels are made in America. The materials don't come from America, and the company ain't owned by America. And this is one of the tactics I mentioned earlier that they're using to get around the growing movement to pass legislation to stop the communist Chinese from buying American land. And so now they can say, well, this isn't that. This is American company. It's a total lie. And once again, this is what we run into. Um, the You have the city council and the mayor um, that are going along with this. They're seeing money coming into the community, and they believe that the company is going to provide all kinds of things for the community. It's going to absolutely destroy its rural feel for it. And one of the ladies who's leading the fight there, her farm is right next door to this plant, and she sees major damage coming to her farm as a result of this. 800 people. How do we know who they are? Are they going to be Americans working there? You know, yeah, this is the
Are they going to
communist
come in
Chinese
off the
operating.
border?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Oh my goodness. And I don't, when they come up when they keep pressing upon this being US made panels, I'd like to think there'd be somebody in the crowd would stand up and just say, lie, lie, total
Yeah,
lie, and just call them on it. But it's probably
yeah,
not that simple. And, I understand that this CCP corporation has plans. This just blew me away, if it's true, that they have plans to create partnerships with K through 12 schools.
yeah, yeah. That's it. Now, last night, I mean, first of all, the people have been standing up. They've been packing city council meetings. The mayor has refused to talk about it. They refused to allow. He's dubbed them all a bunch of radicals, and that they just are trying to stop the progress of the community. That's the argument they're using. They had a couple of weeks ago, they had planned to put together a town hall meeting. They had asked him to do it, and he didn't. But yet, as they were trying to put this together, he made the comment that, well, I was working on doing all that. No, he didn't. And he in this school, they were going to have it there. It's called Licking Heights High School. And they were going to have it there. He somehow, this is my speculation, I don't have proof of this, but I have no doubt that somehow managed to put pressure on and got them to cancel the rental of the auditorium there at the school. And I was going to be there at the time, but they didn't have it. Well, last night they have had it again. They got it back in the same school. They had over 300 people show up. Now, I don't know the results yet. It's going to take some time for all that to filter down. But yesterday morning, the mayor of Pataskala put out this communique. Attention, please. Concerning tonight's meeting at Licking Heights, I'm getting questions about why the school would allow this, as the company being negatively discussed compensates all of our schools for being in our city. Goes with what you just said. The superintendent has stated to me Licking Heights schools cannot deny anyone the right to use a public building or they risk being sued. Licking Heights schools, once known, they do not endorse tonight's meeting in any shape or form, considering the tactics involved in attacking a local company. This is a demented man who ought to be the target of everybody who loves freedom in this nation. Mayor of a 17,000 person community, and this, who bought him, you know?
Exactly, exactly. It sounds like he keeps driving that same point. Local company.
Yeah.
And oh my
What
gosh.
about local citizens?
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
yeah, as you were talking and knowing about what's going on a federal level in Washington and everything, don't you think our local citizenry and the politicians and our local levels are looking to see what's happening in Washington and thinking, well, they should be our role models. Why can't we employ the same tactics here? It should work, right? So.
Well, I just read also that I'm not sure which was Longy or one of these has hired lobbyists and PR people who are crawling all over the state of Ohio legislature,
Yes.
and getting these guys. We've been trying to get legislators there to stand up to this and to fight it, and so far they haven't. So there is a bill in the legislature designed to stop them from buying Ohio property. And I'm working with some activists, and we're trying to make it so that Ohio is a very unwelcoming place to the communist Chinese. But this is what they're doing. They are crawling all over anywhere there's government to somehow get them to come on board with what they're doing. So
Amazing. And I know with the theme of what we're talking about today is setting an agenda for the recapturing of our freedom. And what do we do? How do we fight back? How do we restore our rights? I know we'll be getting into more of that you'll probably elaborate with freedom pods, etc. But do you have anything briefly you'd like to interject as we're winding down with this first part of our interview today?
well, as I said earlier, I am seeing more people starting to catch on, and I'm seeing people who normally are not with us on a lot of these plans or these programs, um, starting to question and be opposed. People are feeling it. All the years of I fought Agenda 21 for 30 years, and there were a lot of times, a lot of half-empty rooms, and people's eyes glazing over. And if people didn't feel the effects of the program, they didn't care. The people who did became our fiercest warriors. Everybody is feeling these things now. They are all threatened. We're talking here food shortages, we're talking energy shortages, we're talking complete government control of everything we think, do, and say. That is the plan. And people are beginning to feel it. They're getting scared and they want to fight back. And I want to be ready to lead them into the fight.
Bless you. Thank you so much for that. And I'd like to speak to our viewers who have stopped by and are enjoying this message. Thank you so much for your time and attention. And if this is striking a chord, if this is getting you riled up a little bit about the injustice, the inequities of all that's happening, please do your best to help us share the message. Click on like and share, post a comment, and to help us spread the message and let us know, let Tom know especially that everything he's doing you appreciate. And that would be very much appreciated. So we're going to be wrapping up this first part here, and we hope you'll join us in part 2 coming up next.